If I could go back to 50, I'd master these 5 skills immediately. There's a particular quiet that settles over the house in the late afternoon. The sun slants low through the window, catching dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny fleeting star. I was sitting here just yesterday, a cup of tea growing cool in my hands, watching those little specks of light, and a thought drifted in as gently as they did. I remembered my 50th birthday. Not the party, not the gifts, but the feeling of standing at the top of a hill. I could see the path I'd climbed behind me, messy, beautiful, exhausting, and I could see the path ahead, disappearing into a haze I couldn't quite make out. There was a sense of accomplishment, yes, but also a low thrumming anxiety, a feeling of, now what? At 50, I was still running a department at work, running errands, running on fumes. Life was a checklist, and I was good at checking the boxes. But I see now that the most important skills for the next chapter of life weren't on that list. They weren't about achieving more, but about being more. They were quieter skills, deeper skills, the kind you can't put on a resume, but that you can build a life on. I can't go back to that woman on the hill, but I can send a letter back in time, a letter to her, a letter to anyone who might be standing on a similar peak, wondering what the journey down the other side is meant to feel like. If you find yourself in that quiet, questioning space too, perhaps these reflections will offer some comfort. The first skill I would have started mastering, with the urgency I once reserved for a work deadline, is the profound art of doing nothing. And I mean truly nothing. Not scrolling on a phone, not listening to a podcast, not planning the week's meals in my head. I mean sitting in a chair and simply being. At 50, stillness felt like a waste of precious time, an indulgence. Now, I see it as a necessity, as vital as breathing. I think of my father in his later years. After he retired from a life of hard physical work, he would spend long stretches of the afternoon in his old armchair, just looking out the garden window. As a younger woman, I'd see him and my heart would ache with a kind of pity. I thought he was bored, that his world had become so small. I would bustle in, chattering, trying to fill the silence I found so uncomfortable. "Dad, don't you want to watch something? Or read the paper?" He would just smile softly and say, "I'm all right, honey, just watching the birds." It took me decades to understand what he was doing. He wasn't just watching the birds. He was practicing presence. He was letting the world wash over him without needing to control it or fix it or improve it. He was giving his soul room to breathe. He was probably having a silent conversation with God, one that didn't require folded hands or a church pew. The world screams at us to be productive, but there is a deep, holy productivity in stillness. It's in the quiet that we can finally hear the whispers we've been drowning out with our own busyness. It's where grief can surface safely, where new ideas can take root, and where we can finally feel the steady, reassuring presence of grace. Perhaps a good place to start is with just 5 minutes. 5 minutes in a chair, with no agenda, but to notice your own breath and the light in the room. It feels awkward at first, but it is the beginning of a profound friendship with yourself. That leads me to the second skill, which is tied so closely to the first. It's the discipline of gentle forgiveness. At 50, my bag of regrets was getting heavy. I didn't even realize I was carrying it most of the time, but my shoulders ached with the weight of it. Harsh words I'd said to my children in a moment of stress. Opportunities I'd been too afraid to take. Friendships I'd let wither from neglect. I remember one specific memory that would visit me in the dead of night. My son, then a teenager, had done something foolish. I can't even recall what it was now. And I had met his mistake not with wisdom, but with white-hot anger. I saw the look on his face, the way he flinched and shut down. And for 20 years, that look would ambush me. I had apologized, of course. He had long since forgiven me, but I had not forgiven myself. The memory was a smooth, cold stone I kept in my pocket, turning it over and over, feeling its sharp edges. The skill I wish I'd learned sooner is that forgiveness isn't a one-time event. It's a practice, like weeding a garden. You have to tend to it. For me, the shift came not in a grand moment of catharsis, but in the quiet. I finally brought that cold stone out of my pocket and held it up to the light. In a moment of prayer, I didn't ask for my guilt to be taken away. I just said, Lord, help me see this with your eyes. And what I felt was not judgment, but a deep, sorrowful compassion for my son, yes, but also for that tired, overwhelmed 40-something woman who was doing the best she could with what she had. Grace isn't about pretending the mistake didn't happen. It's about accepting that you are loved deeply and completely, even with your flaws, especially with them. It might be worth asking yourself, what stone are you still carrying? Perhaps a quiet moment with a journal, not to judge but simply to describe it, could be the first step in finally setting it down. If something in this is resonating with you, I'd be so grateful to know. You might just type "I'm listening" in the comments below so we know we're in this together. It helps to know we are not alone on this path. The third skill is a practical one, but it has deep spiritual roots. It's the practice of saying no with grace. By the time I was 50, my yes was almost automatic. Yes, I'll join that committee. Yes, I'll host the family gathering. Yes, I'll help you move. Yes, I'll bake 3 dozen cookies for the fundraiser. These were all good things, born from a desire to be helpful, to be needed. But my well of energy was not infinite. My yes to everyone else was often a silent, resentful no to myself. A no to rest, a no to a quiet walk, a no to time with my husband, a no to that stillness I so desperately needed. I remember one particular week, I had said yes to 3 different volunteer commitments, on top of a demanding work schedule and a promise to help my aging mother with her finances. By Friday, I was so depleted, I felt transparent. I was short-tempered with the people I loved most, and I felt a simmering resentment toward the very people I had tried to help. In my exhaustion, I finally understood. My time and energy are not just resources, they are a sacred trust. God has given me this one precious life, this one vessel, and it is my responsibility to be a wise steward of it. Saying yes from a place of depletion isn't a gift to anyone. It's offering them an empty cup. Learning to say, no thank you, or I wish I could, but I'm unable to at this time, was terrifying at first. I felt selfish. I felt I was letting people down. But something beautiful happened. The world did not fall apart. The people who mattered understood. And by saying no to the good things, I created space for the best things. My yes became more meaningful. It came from a place of fullness, not obligation. It was a true gift, freely given. Saying no isn't an act of rejection. It's an act of curation. It's clearing the clutter from your life to make room for what truly matters. Which brings me to the fourth skill, the courage to be a beginner again. For decades, my identity was wrapped up in being competent. I was a manager, a mother, a wife. I knew what I was doing, or at least I was very good at pretending I did. The thought of being new at something, of being clumsy, awkward, and slow, was mortifying. But as life shifts, as children leave and careers wind down, the roles that defined us fall away. And in that space, there is an invitation to discover who you are when you're not an expert. I stumbled into this skill by accident. A friend convinced me to join a watercolor class at the local community center. The first night I was filled with a dread I hadn't felt since school. Everyone seemed to know what they were doing. My paper buckled, my colors bled into a muddy mess, and my painting of a pear looked more like a sad brown potato. My pride screamed at me to never come back. But I made myself go back. And the next week, I focused not on the result, but on the feeling of the brush in my hand, the simple magic of water and pigment. I started talking to the woman next to me, a retired nurse, and we laughed at our shared disasters. And slowly a shift occurred. I let go of the need to be good at it. I gave myself permission to simply play. Embracing the role of the beginner is an act of profound humility. It's an admission that you don't have it all figured out. It opens you up to wonder, to laughter, to the joy of small improvements. Whether it's learning to play the ukulele, trying a new recipe, or tackling a language on an app, being a beginner reminds us that growth doesn't stop at 50. In fact, it's just getting interesting. What have you always wanted to try but were afraid you'd be bad at? Maybe now is the perfect time to be wonderfully, gloriously bad at it for a while. And finally, the fifth and most vital skill is the one that weaves all the others together. It's the simple daily habit of naming the small glories. For so much of my life, I measured joy in milestones. Graduations, weddings, promotions, holidays, these were the big, bright fireworks in the sky. But a life is not lived in the fireworks. A life is lived in the quiet moments between them. When the big milestones become fewer and farther between, it's easy to feel that life is shrinking, that the best is behind you. But this is a trick of the light. The truth is, life isn't shrinking, it's deepening. The invitation is to adjust our eyes, to see the beauty that was there all along, hidden in the ordinary. This is a skill you have to practice. It's the practice of noticing. It's the cardinal that lands on the fence, a flash of impossible red against the grey wood. It's the smell of coffee brewing in the morning, a promise of warmth and gentle beginnings. It's the way the evening light falls across the worn arm of your favourite chair. It's the unexpected text from a friend. These aren't just pleasant moments. I've come to believe they are love notes from God. Tiny personal assurances that we are seen, that we are held, that there is beauty right here, right now, in this very breath. Naming them, even just silently to yourself, there's a glory, is an act of prayer. It is the most potent antidote I have found to sorrow, to loneliness, and to the fear that our purpose has faded. Your purpose isn't a grand title anymore. Your purpose is to witness the beauty of a world that is still unfolding and to be grateful. So these are the skills: the art of stillness, the discipline of forgiveness, the grace of saying no, the courage of being a beginner, and the habit of naming the small glories. Looking back, I see they are not separate lessons, they are woven together. The stillness creates the space to feel the need for forgiveness. Forgiveness lightens your soul so you can say no with confidence. Saying no gives you the time and energy to be a beginner. And being a beginner with your eyes wide open is what allows you to see the small glories everywhere. I used to think purpose was a destination you chase, a mountain you had to climb. I see now that was the ego of my youth. The purpose isn't a mountain, it's a garden. It's something you tend right where you are. You weed out the regrets. You water the seeds of new interests. You make space for the light to get in, and you learn to delight in the quiet, daily growth. It's a much quieter calling, but a profoundly beautiful one. Life doesn't end when the big roles change. It simply asks for a different kind of song. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today, for sharing this quiet space. I hope something here has brought a little peace to your heart. Be gentle with yourself this week, and if you feel someone else might need to hear this, please feel free to pass it along.